This is Grandmaster Maxim Dlugy with TheChessWorld.com presenting to you the Borisenko-Furman variation of the Queen's Gambit accepted. Let's take a look at this. D4, D5, and white plays C4, and now we're in the invitation to the Queen's Gambit accepted. Black accepts the invitation, pawn takes pawn, and white plays knight f3. Now there are many other moves white can try, but knight f3 is one of the main moves. And now black plays this funny little move a6. The idea of the move is clearly to try to defend this pawn if white attacks it, but if white attacks it with e3, actually b5 is not such a good move, because white can start undermining this pawn chain with the move a4. And let's take a look how this could go. So white with this move threatens to take the pawn, and black cannot recapture because of rook takes rook. So black, let's say, defends the rook with the bishop. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, and now the undermining of the pawn chain continues. b3, and let's say black takes on b3, white captures on b5 with check, which is very important, and now to c6 simply moves the bishop back to c4, attacking the pawn. And you can see that even a check, queen a5 check, doesn't really help to defend this pawn here. The pawn will be lost, and white will get a slightly better position because he has created a weakness out of the pawn on c6. So actually, the idea of the move e3, let me move the pieces back. The idea of the move e3 is not just to let me see here. So knight f3, a6. So e3 would actually invite black into this trap, into playing b5, but black doesn't have to play b5. He can just develop his pawns and like this, for example, e6, bishop takes pawn, and c5. And this is a main line of Queen's Gambit accepted. So the question is, what if white tries to save a tempo and tries to move in his pawn into the center immediately with e4? Here we come to the Borisenko-Furman variation. Now, Furman he was called the world champion with the white pieces because he was extremely dangerous when he was playing white, and he developed many very dangerous opening ideas, and he was Anatoly Karpov's opening coach and main coach for many years. So after e4, there's a difference between what we just looked at and the line that we will see right now. Black does play b5. Now white plays a4, same basic idea as we just looked at. Black plays bishop b7, white takes on b5, black takes on b5, white takes on a8, black takes the rook back on a8, and now we get the same position we looked at, except the pawn's not on e3 but on e4. And this slight difference makes the difference in how white should be playing, because now the move b3 simply doesn't make sense. Black will actually capture the most important pawn, the central pawn, and even when white regains this pawn, first of all, he has to watch out for the knight, so he has to probably play a move like knight c3, and black can either take the knight or go back with the bishop. In any case, white cannot take two pawns at the same time. He'll only take one, and black will remain a pawn up. So because of this very important detail, the pawn being on e4 and being attacked by the bishop, white does not have time for b3, the undermining maneuver. He has to play knight c3. Now this is an interesting move, and now black's best move is not to go into these complications with b4 to attack the knight and try to win the pawn, because white has this check, and all of a sudden black's in trouble because the pawn is hanging, and if black plays knight c6 to defend the pawn, white can simply move the knight away, and this pawn on c4 will be hanging too. The knight can go to a2, b1, and in any case, white will be in great shape. Even bishop takes pawn is a possible move, because white can then play with knight e5 and attack the mate and the knight on c6. So many moves that are good for white in this case. We won't look at them because it's not. The point is that it's just a bad move. The best move for black is c6, after which black, I think, has a good position. I won a few games in my tournament practice with this move, and the idea here is that black's position is quite defendable, because these pawns provide a wall against white's pieces coming in. So let's take a look at some key ideas here. Let's say white tries to break through immediately with d5. Black has to quickly try to get his pieces into action. The key move is to play e6. And for example, let's take a look at a game that I played recently. Bishop f4 to try to attack this knight and keep the queen tied up to it. Black can take on d5, and when white takes, black simply pins the knight. We have to develop and at the same time stop our opponents from developing or moving their pieces. That is the only chance we have. Now, in this position, it actually looks like black could be in trouble. White comes in with the queen, attacking this pawn on g7 and threatening queen e5 check to win the knight. It looks like black will have to lose something here, but in fact he has a wonderful escape with knight f6. And now if white plays queen e5 check to win the knight on b8, unbelievably there seems to be a great answer. Queen e7, pinning the queen to the king, and if white takes the queen with check, black suddenly takes back the queen and magically defends the knight with the rook. The rook defends the knight, and therefore we have a position where white is simply down a pawn without any reasonable compensation. This is of course a very tactical line. White could play a little better, but in my experience white does not have advantage in this line. So I suggest that if you're black, play this move a6. It will try to trap your opponent into playing e4, and they may overextend and lose very quickly. Thank you.